I was on the field for day 4 of Buffalo Bills training camp, and I'm here to share all of my observations today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. Very excited to break down day 4 of Buffalo Bills training camp. I had the opportunity to be in attendance on the field, and so I have a lot of observations to give you today, firsthand observations. And so I want to talk offense, defense, special teams, and please stick around for the special teams conversation. We're going to get to that in segment 3, but there's so much to get into because we heard from special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley before practice, and then we got to see a lot of that application on the practice field. And so if you're curious on the kickoff rule, the kickoff return situation, all of that, who's doing the punt returns, how Tyler Bass is handling things, we're going to get to that in segment 3. But I do want to start with the offense. And there was a lot of work today offensively in the passing game for running backs and tight ends. You could tell that when you go to a practice, there's something that they're working on, something that they're emphasizing. And I felt like the passing game and involvement of running backs and tight ends was a big part of today. Now, there's certainly plenty of wide receiver takeaways. I'll get to that. But initially, you saw Josh Allen very specifically working with tight ends and running backs. And it's interesting because James Cook wasn't available on Sunday. He missed practice. He was excused from practice due to personal reasons, which created great opportunities for Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. So let's start there. Ray Davis, I thought he had a very good day catching the football. Route running is pretty obvious, very natural receiver. I thought that really showed up both in individual drills and team drills. He got plenty of opportunity to touch the football today, and it was nice to kind of get a feel for what that looks like. There's a lot of natural movement skills, a lot of natural receiving skill that you can tell. Plus, he's got that fire hydrant build that suggests he's got a dense frame that is built low to the ground and should be able to be very good through contact based on his size. But clearly a lot of receiving skill, and Josh Allen and him were on the same page quite a bit. A lot of touch throws down the field, which stands out for a running back. Also, Curtis Samuel. I want to point him out because when the Bills were doing these sessions with running backs and tight ends, Curtis Samuel was one of the running backs. You know, the receivers were out doing something else. Curtis Samuel was getting work with the running backs, and he got work with running backs and wide receivers, but it's not anything you haven't heard, but it's pretty clear that Curtis Samuel is going to have such a multifaceted role for this offense, whether it is handoffs, catching the football out of the backfield, winning from wide alignments down the field, in the intermediate areas, taking the ball quick and relying on yards after catch. There's a lot on the table here for Curtis Samuel. And Joe Brady appears to be primed to fully take advantage of all the versatility that Curtis Samuel brings to the table. And so I thought those were the two guys, obviously, with James Cook not available. You saw Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Curtis Samuel get a lot of opportunity, but of course, so did the tight ends. And again, not a revolutionary comment, but Dalton Kincaid's the guy. He's the guy for this offense. They throw the ball to him a ton. And I think he's going to catch a bunch of passes. Could he top 100 passes caught this year? It wouldn't surprise me at all. There's a lot for Dalton Kincaid, whether it's seam routes, catching the ball short and using yards after the catch, Josh Allen in motion, finding Dalton Kincaid. He's a big part of this operation. which is nothing groundbreaking, but there's also a pretty big role here for Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox, even through, taking a back seat as, he was the Bills starting tight end for a bunch of seasons. Then they draft Dalton Kincaid in the first round and kind of wonder what's there for Dawson Knox. There's plenty there for him. They got the ball to him in screens. They got him over the middle of the field, some rollout stuff. Dawson Knox was a big part of this offense today. And he had one of the best plays of the day. It was a seam shot down the middle of the field. He was able to catch the ball through 3 defenders. I think the defenders were Damar Hamlin, Balin Spector, and Taylor Rapp. And a great throw from Josh Allen, a really beautiful touch throw down the middle of the field. But Dawson Knox coming up with that catch with a bunch of people around him. It was good work. So I think I come away feeling like there's so many ways that this offense is going to want to attack defenses, but do not dismiss what is on the table for Knox, how big of a role Curtis Samuel can have. Kincaid's really the guy, and Ray Davis is going to make some noise here as a pass catcher. So lots of like there from the running backs and tight ends. Now, I think generally speaking, the tight alignments that the Bills were working really stand out to me. And this is something that Anthony Prohaska of Cover One has been preaching this summer, and he was all over it, talking about formational width and tight alignments and, not necessarily spacing the field with a lot of width, what you maybe saw a lot under Brian Dable, but everything a lot more condensed. You're seeing bunch sets, 3x2s. You see wide receivers really working on switch releases and being able to have that timing and tempo down where, hey, you go this way, I go that way. We get into our route stems and we create a lot of conflict for the defense. And the Bills love the wheel routes. They love the slot fades. And I think their spin on these tighter alignments really leans into Josh Allen's arm talent. So they want to challenge you horizontally by bringing everyone together, creating that outside leverage, knowing that they have a quarterback in Josh Allen that has access to the entire field, including those deep windows outside the numbers. And so you saw a lot of throws from Josh Allen into those types of areas with tight alignments where guys are using their releases and the tightness of the alignments to really create a lot of leverage advantages. And then it's about, hey, get to that space and trust that we have a quarterback with the arm talent to get it there. It's kind of a unique way to utilize the size that these skill players have, in addition to the arm talent that Josh Allen brings to the table. And then you think, okay, whether it's zone coverage or man coverage, when you have these tight sets with a lot of switch releases, you create natural rubs against man coverage. That's going to create guys getting open. And then if you get zone coverage, there's a lot of stress in the communication because guys are going to start with one alignment and then switch and come to different parts of the field. And guys are going to have to pass off and carry and communicate on defense. And so there's a number of different ways that can create stress for a defense. And then on top of that, you think about what it means for your run game, what it means for your play action game. You try to marry up your run concept so that your play action passing game works because it looks the same. And I think tighter alignments really set up a lot of great opportunities there, in addition to some rollout stuff, which you saw Josh Allen doing quite a bit of today. So a lot of fun and unique, interesting ideas that this Bills team can lean into based on what we're seeing with these tighter alignments. Some notes here from 7-on-7. Josh Allen had some really big moments. Some of my favorites were Josh Allen hitting Ray Davis on a seam route. So he was in the backfield, kind of a wide set back, and was able to kind of cross face of that slot corner and get vertical. And so created some inside leverage and caught a nice pass down the middle of the field from Josh Allen, which was a good throw, good pass. Big time throw, like I mentioned, down the middle of the field to Dawson Knox, beat Spector, Hamlin, and Rapp. To me, it was one of the wow moments of the practice. There was other ones. We'll talk about it. Keon Coleman certainly on the receiving end of some of that. But Dawson Knox being able to catch that pass, I'd call it Josh Allen dotting the I in the middle of the field. And just great touch, great accuracy, and a really nice catch by Dawson Knox. There was another throw. Josh Allen put it in perfect position for Ty Johnson on a wheel route down the left sideline. Ty Johnson got behind Dorian Williams, who was covering him on the play, and Josh Allen put it right in the breadbasket. Ty Johnson dropped it. He did push-ups after the play, but it was a really good throw, catch, not a catch, but throw from Josh Allen that should have been caught for a touchdown. I thought there was a defensive standout in terms of a play in 7-on-7. It was an over-the-middle throw to Dawson Knox, and Cole Bishop was that kind of that middle-of-the-field safety, and he jumped the route, and he jumped it. It should have been like a pick six. He dropped the opportunity to catch an interception, but he was in perfect position, really confident click and close on the football. And so I thought that was a very bright moment there from Cole Bishop to attack that ball and disrupt everything at the catch point for Dawson Knox and Josh Allen. Josh Allen did have one misfire. It was to Mack Hollins on a deep shot down the left sideline. Throw was short and behind him. But other than that, I thought Josh Allen displayed really good touch and ran the offense quite well in 7-on-7. When it comes to team drills, some of the highlights there, a lot of utilization for Dalton Kincaid, whether it's short routes, middle of the field. They want to get the ball to Dalton Kincaid, and they should. And Kincaid's reliable. He catches the ball. He gets open. He's very dynamic with the ball in his hands. And so that role that you think is going to be there for Dalton Kincaid is there. And it was a standout element of the team drills that I observed today. Keon Coleman with a beautiful touchdown catch over Christian Benford. Benford had tight coverage. It was a better throw and a better catch by Josh Allen to Keon Coleman. Tight window, back left corner of the end zone, and just really nice touch. But it's Keon Coleman. I'll talk a little bit more about him on the next segment, but the ball skills, the hands, the body control just pop in such a big way. And I like how Joe Brady is positioning Coleman to utilize his best strengths within this offense. I had Khalil Shakir had a wheel route for a touchdown. Keep on saying wheel routes. They love these wheel routes. They love these slot fades. And that was a throw that was another tight throw between Kaiir Elam and Taron Johnson. And Khalil Shakir was able to catch the ball and get into the end zone. And then another standout play that I don't think is getting enough attention is Mack Hollins. He mossed Christian Benford in the end zone. It reminded me of the Matt Milano catch, the interception last year that he had against the Raiders. Is very much that, but the offensive version of it, where Mack Hollins was able to just like kind of go back and catch the ball over Christian Benford and make a great adjustment. And I mean, literally just moss the dude. So plenty of big time throws and catches in team drills and 7-on-7, and just a lot of confidence from Josh Allen with touch throws and working the ball into tight windows and his guys making catches. And so that was really, really evident in observing the offense on Sunday morning. All right, I got more offensive notes. I've got plenty of defensive notes, and then a big special teams segment coming up here for you. So be sure to stick with me. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone. Every day, all summer long. And my favorite thing right now on FanDuel is all the football's futures bets. So whether it's win totals for teams, statistical output like the over-unders, they have fun team specials that you can check out. So much good stuff. The awards and the odds for everybody. Check it out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, folks, welcome back to this episode of Locked On Bills. I'm here in the greater Rochester area. Took in practice this morning. Really, really enjoyed it. Big shout out to the Bills for having me and allowing me to take in practice, and excited to share more of what I observed, continuing with some offensive notes. I have this written down. I already said it. Josh Allen, tight window throws, lots of touch. That speaks to confidence to me, right? You're not going to layer the ball into tight windows with touch if you don't have a lot of confidence in your ball placement. And I thought Josh Allen really, really shined with those types of throws. Now, there were a few throws, particularly in like just routes against air, that I thought he was a little off on. Some of the shorter throws, just kind of in breaking patterns where the receivers had to go back and get the ball. But when we got the team drills, this dude was money, just putting it in spots that his receivers were able to go make plays on the ball. Mack Hollins is a player that I don't know. The hype's just there. And I know that he's north of 30 and has never really been a super productive receiver. And I don't know that he's going to be a super productive receiver for the Bills, but he's going to have a role. And he gets a lot of first team run. He brings unbelievable energy. Like, there's something about him. And it's not just the big hair and the crazy, like, cut up shirt that he wears underneath his pads. He brings juice. And I observed him on a bunch of occasions, just like challenging teammates, being vocal. And, you know, you can see Keon Coleman spends a lot of time with him. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that Mack Hollins is going to bring to this football team, is that veteran presence for a guy like Keon Coleman. And I think he's going to be so beneficial for him. But even there was a play where there was two receivers running routes on air, and they both caught the ball. It was KJ Hamler and it was Mack Hollins. They both caught the ball, and Hamler was ahead of Hollins, and Hamler's like running to the goal line, and Hollins just gets on his horse and starts sprinting, and he's like challenging him to a race. And he said some fun stuff to Hamler that I can't repeat, but like, he just brings a lot of juice and competitive energy to the football field, and it's infectious. It's absolutely infectious. And I love that Keon Coleman is right there with him, and I think they're going to be such a benefit for each other. I already talked about Curtis Samuel and all the different ways that I think the Bills are going to deploy him. I talked about Ray Davis. I will say this. He did have a fumble in this practice. He was working, kind of pushing the ball to the sideline, and somebody came through and knocked it right out. But I thought the receiving ability from Ray Davis really popped. In terms of maybe some lowlights with the offense, I think there's two players that I find myself pretty concerned about. One of them is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It just doesn't seem like, based on this practice that I observed and the lack of observations, I think, to this point in camp, I don't know. I just don't know if there's going to be a role here for Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You saw him not get any first-team work today, but you did see Tyrell Shavers get a bunch of first-team work. You saw Chase Claypool get a bunch of first-team work. KJ Hamler got a bunch of first-team work. And so not only are those guys out repping MVS with the first team, those guys all play special teams. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, as a depth receiver for this team, doesn't play special teams. And so I know there's guaranteed money on that contract, but right now I don't really see the path for MVS. If he's not getting regular reps with Josh Allen in practice, and he doesn't bring fourth down ability, special teams ability, and other players that do bring special teams ability that are younger, that you probably want to like keep hanging on to, are getting those opportunities. Like, I don't know. Right now, if I had to make a 53-man roster projection right now for the Bills, I would not include MVS on it. The only thing that's interesting about making a case for MVS is that there's guaranteed money on his deal. That makes you think twice about it. That's it. It's nothing about the practice. Like, if you didn't know anything about the contracts for these players and you just watched this practice, he would be a complete afterthought for you in terms of making this roster. The other guy that I have concerns about is Lyle Collins, backup offensive lineman. He's got a lot of second team work. I don't see the movement skills. He looks like a guy that's had a bunch of injuries over the last few seasons and is on the wrong side of 30. I mean, he just kind of looks beat up. Sluggish mover, really struggles to bend and really sink his hips. Thought his feet were heavy. I thought his feet were really, really heavy. So I don't have a lot of optimism for him. Now, there's plenty of time here, training camp and preseason games. We'll find out, but it doesn't look good for Lyle Collins, in my opinion. One thing that we need to start talking about is Connor McGovern and snapping the football. I know that the Bills are giving him this opportunity to play center. I think he's going to be the center. I don't really have any question about that. I don't think they're going to reverse course or do anything drastic here. But the consistency of the shotgun snaps is poor right now. In this practice, I saw multiple snaps that were dribbled back where Josh Allen had to scoop it up off the ground. I saw snaps that were you could tell Josh is like, there's a concentration on the snap that he typically hasn't had to have. And so just he's not exactly sure where that ball is going to be. And you could see, like, before he can get his eyes on the defense and on his receivers, he's got to find that catch. And he kind of just searches for it a lot on the shotgun snap. So it's something to be mindful of, and something we never had to think about with Mitch Morse. Those snaps are on the money every time, no questions asked. And Josh Allen, whether he's scooping it off the ground or having to make adjustments to the ball, it's definitely something that caught my eye and was a consistent problem throughout throughout this practice. So I'm going to keep observing it, but they got to get that tightened up. Again, really early. It's day 4 of camp. There's a lot of time, but that's definitely something that doesn't look very polished right now. Another note here on the second team offensive line. We talked about this a little bit last week. Based on this practice, the second team offensive line appeared to be Ryan Vandemark at left tackle, Will Clapp at left guard, Alec Anderson at center. The right guard was Cedric Van Pran Granger. The right tackle was Lyle Collins. And this is a notable shift because the last time we talked, backup offensive lineman Tylen Grable got work at left tackle and guard. In this practice, I saw Cedric Van Pran Granger getting those second team snaps at guard, no Grable. And also notable that Van Pran Granger is playing guard. I know some people believe that he was a center only. I told you that he wasn't, and he's getting chances to play guard as evidenced in this practice. So that's what I have for you on offense. Let's talk a little bit of defense here. The safeties were Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin in this practice. So the fourth day goes back to the first day in terms of who those starters are. So we see a clear pattern here. Hamlin, Edwards, Bishop, or back to Hamlin. We'll see if that trend continues or if it tightens up. You think about the linebacker race that the Bills had last year. It was Terrel Bernard, Tyrel Dotson. Then we had one Balin Spector moment, and then it became Bernard and Dotson, and then, it took care of itself. I'm curious to see how this plays out at safety. So we're back to Hamlin as a starter. Thought he played well. Thought he had some good downhill fills and put himself in position to make some tackles. And was at least in position a few times to make some plays in coverage. Certainly nothing that would bother me. I also thought Cole Bishop, I thought he looked pretty good. Had him playing a lot of deep middle of the field coverage, jumped that one route that he should have had an interception on, was around the football, looked confident, which is important to see. So we got a full-blown battle, and today was Damar Hamlin's opportunity, it seems like. We can't be sleeping on Kaiir Elam. The dude's getting a ton of first-team work. Douglas and Benford were your starters, the first guys through, but then you saw Kaiir Elam working very regularly, and at times Benford went off the field, and at times Douglas went off the field. And so, again, it's early, there's so much time here, but they're working in Elam regularly. He's getting a lot of first-team reps, and I thought he had a great day. I mentioned the route that he clamped up Keon Coleman in a one-on-one drill at the end of practice for a pass breakup. He had an interception, and the interception was really good. It was Shane Buechele hung one up in the middle of the field to KJ Hamler, okay? But Kaiir Elam was the corner, and I think it was cover 3. Again, you get one live look at these plays, so I would love to watch the tape on this, but it looked to be cover 3 where Kaiir Elam had that deep third, and he had no threat to his area. And so he was able to just kind of keep getting depth. And when that ball was thrown, he took a perfect angle and went and picked off that pass. And so I thought that was an outstanding rep in zone coverage, not to mention a really nice rep where he was super sticky on Keon Coleman. And Josh tried to make a leverage throw for Keon Coleman to go get it. And Kaiir Elam said, no, you're not getting that ball. So I thought Kaiir Elam had a great practice, and of extreme note that he is getting a lot of first-team reps. So don't stick a fork in Kaiir Elam. He ain't done yet. I don't know how big the role is going to be this year or if he's just CB3, but he looks good. Also, when it comes to the second group of defensive tackles, we know Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver are your starters. The guys that worked in afterwards were Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams. And so we didn't see Dwayne Carter take snaps away from Deshaun Williams, at least yet. The second group of linebackers after Bernard and Milano were Balin Spector and Dorian Williams. That feels like a bit of a theme as the next wave of linebackers. I thought that based on the way that this practice went, and I commented already about how they threw the ball a lot to running backs and tight ends. That was a big emphasis, it felt like, for this practice. That put a lot of stress on the linebackers, and I thought Bernard and Milano got worked a little bit earlier in practice, but I thought they got better and better throughout the day. Milano gave up some catches early on, but later on, I thought he did a very good job of positioning himself in coverage, cutting off routes, getting outside the numbers and being in position to make some tackles on some shorter throws. I thought he got better throughout the practice. And even same thing with Terrel Bernard, where kind of gave up some stuff early on, but then you saw him start to cap routes over the middle of the field. There was one time where Dalton Kincaid was trying to cross his face, and he gained some initial leverage, and it was a pretty good throw. And then Bernard kind of came through and just knocked the ball out, and it wound up being what the referees on the field deemed an incomplete pass. So it was really kind of cool to see that happen. I didn't watch a ton of the trenches because there was no pads. The pads are coming on tomorrow, so we'll talk trenches a lot tomorrow. But Von Miller did have what I would label a would-be sack, beating Spencer Brown to sack Josh Allen. Of course, nobody really sacks anybody, so Von got a step on him and kind of stop. But you would if that played out, I would feel like he would have sacked Josh Allen. So I thought that was a positive step there for Von Miller, as the Bills worked in a bunch of defensive ends. Of course, Rousseau and him and Epinesa and Dwayne Smoot getting a lot of opportunity with the first team once again. So those were my notes as it relates to the defense. We got a bunch to talk about when it comes to special teams, folks. Be sure to stick with me. The NFL season is here. You want to get to some of these games at Highmark Stadium. Maybe you live in a different market and you want to see the local team play there when the Bills aren't playing. Got to go to Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. The app is awesome. It's easy to navigate. There's tons of special things like zone deals. They give you flash deals, last-minute ticket specials. They give you a seat view, and my favorite thing is the best price guarantee that includes an all-in price. There's no surprises coming. You get the full price from the beginning of the purchase transaction, not any surprises coming at the end. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I hope that you're still here because we got a lot to say about special teams. The practice, I guess, started off with Matthew Smiley, the Bills special teams coordinator, meeting with the media. And so we took in his press conference, and then there was a lot of special teams practice on the field. Of course, Coach Smiley was asked about the new kickoff rule, and I really enjoyed the way he answered this. He started talking about having humility and acknowledging that this has never been done before, that you're probably not going to figure it all out, and that it's fluid. And he said, candidly, there's more anxiety from me than I have excitement about this new kickoff rule. And maybe you listen to that and you think, well, I mean, what in the world? Why is he talking like that? He's the Bills special teams coach. I want him to have confidence and excitement about what he can get done and how this can be an advantage for the Bills. But I would push back and say that's not the right mentality to have. I think it's healthy, and I think it's a good thing to have a little nervousness about things. I'll give you a story about myself. One time at a previous line of work, I got a promotion that I was a little surprised to get. It was something I wanted in time. It happened a little sooner than I thought. And I remember sitting down with my boss, and she asked me straight up, she's like, how do you feel? How do you feel about, having this opportunity? I said, I got to be honest. I'm nervous about it. Like, I'm not exactly sure that I'm ready for this. And she said, good. She said, if you came in here and told me that you were ready to take control and that you had all these great ideas and you had it all figured out, she said, I'd be worried that I had the wrong person. I think you have a little nervousness. It's a good spot to be, because it's going to put you in a position to really be relentless in your pursuit to be able to figure it out. And so I thought he had a great response, talking about humility, more anxiousness than excitement, and just was candid about this is going to be such a fluid thing, and we have to adjust what we do to make sure that we're positioning ourselves to be successful with it. One thing that he said that surprised me, and it looks like I was wrong about, he said that kick returners are going to look more like punt returners. And I said, throughout all of our conversations to this point about the kick returners, I said, I don't know. I think this is going to be more running backs. It's going to be more with less air in the play. They're more like offensive runs. And so I think you're going to see more running backs. And I don't know that you're going to want the smaller guys. And Matthew Smiley said exactly the opposite. He said there's going to be less high-speed collisions, and the guys that you traditionally said are punt returners only that you didn't think were comfortable being kick returners, we think that those players are going to be the best options for this job. And so Matthew Smiley and I saw that differently, and I'll certainly defer to him. He's the one that's an NFL special teams coach. But my guess there didn't prove to be correct. He talked about the punt returners for the Bills being, because I know we're kind of interested, who's it going to be, right? Who's the punt return going to be? KJ Hamler, Daquan Hardy, and Andy Isabella. Those, when the Bills practice punt return in practice, those three guys were also the guys that had opportunities. I thought they all looked good. I will note that Daquan Hardy did have one muff. Everybody else fielded cleanly every punt that I observed. In terms of kick returners, these were the combinations that the Bills used as kick returners. There was one group that was Daquan Hardy and KJ Hamler. There was one group that was Ty Johnson and Mack Hollins. There was one group that was Andy Isabella and Ray Davis. So those are the 6 names right now that are getting those opportunities. Now, my suspicion going into the season was not Andy Isabella. It would be Ty Johnson and Curtis Samuel. Doesn't look like Curtis Samuel is going to factor in on this at this point. So Hardy and Hamler, Johnson and Hollins, Isabella and Davis got your opportunities to serve as kick returners. Coach Smiley was asked about Jack Browning, the UDFA punter out of San Diego State. This is what he said. He's got fast get-off and natural mechanics, which are hard things to change. So what he means by fast get-off is the time that it takes to catch the punt and get it off, right? He was very satisfied with how quick those things are for him. And he referenced, hey, like if somebody's not quick and they have to speed it up, that's a very difficult thing to change. So he seemed quite satisfied with the blend of get off and mechanics for Jack Browning as a punter. Obviously, he said he has obvious leg strength. He was asked about the holding element and said, while he was the place kicker, he wasn't always the place kicker at San Diego State. So he had a couple of years as a holder and practice holding throughout his entire time there because he was the backup holder. Said he has good hands, and the biggest thing for him is adjusting to Tyler Bass as the kicker. It's not necessarily being able to catch and put it down, but it's how does Tyler Bass like it? Like how does he like the ball to lean, those types of things. He was asked about Tyler Bass, who of course didn't have the season anybody hoped last year. And Coach Smiley said, comes down to technique and sports sciences, right? And so the technique stuff is you figure that out, right? This is what you're doing wrong that leads to misses, but the mental side's probably the bigger thing. And I appreciated how Coach Smiley answered this. He started talking about how people, while it's tough to admit, you learn more through adversity. And to that point, in Tyler Bass's career, hadn't really had any slumps or any major issues. Like he'd occasionally have a miss, but for the most part, pretty consistent. And there's a reason that the Bills gave him the contract that they did. Well, you do learn a lot through adversity. You're a human being. You've been through stuff in your life. And while it's hard to know in the moment, you can look back at things that you went through and realize that you grew through adversity. Certainly that's the rosy approach with Tyler Bass, but everything that I've been able to glean, and I've asked a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people, the Bills are fully committed to Tyler Bass. They believe in Tyler Bass. And so let's hope that things get on track there, because that's definitely what the Bills are anticipating. On kickers tackling, this has been another big conversation with the new kickoff rule, is the involvement of a kicker on tackles. He said you could have a regular position player do it, but that player is going to have a lot less choices with the ball. There's going to be a lot of different types of kicks used on these kickoffs, whether it's kind of a knuckle kick, whether it's directional. And he said, look, hang time doesn't matter, but that doesn't mean that you don't want the guy to catch the ball as close to the goal line as possible so that they have as far as possible to go before they can get yards. Like, we're not trying to get them to catch the ball at the 17-yard line. We want them to have to go further to get more yards. So he kind of talked about, he's like, yeah, you can have a regular player do it, but that player's not going to have the same options kicking the ball. And it felt like that was an important dynamic for Coach Smiley, was the different ways that a kicker can kick the ball and force, weird spin on the ball and just make it difficult for those guys to handle. And so he said the emphasis should be on protecting the kicker from having to make tackles. So it's an inevitable element here, but I think that there's something to be said for, yeah, hang time doesn't matter, but there is directional elements. There is spin on the ball. There's a lot that these kickers can do that a regular position player couldn't do. And that our job should be, how do we make sure that Tyler Bass isn't having to make a lot of tackles? And so you watch them practice this during practice, and Tyler Bass did kick the ball a ton of different ways. Sometimes he was trying to get it to bounce before the returners can get the ball. There was times where you could tell that he was trying to get them to catch it as close as possible to the goal line. There were several times where the ball was kind of side spin and fielded like a couple yards into the end zone. There was a lot. It wasn't just a tip. I've watched kickoffs. It wasn't just the normal kickoffs that you see. Tyler Bass was trying to do a lot of different things with the ball. Gable Stevenson was he was on the kick coverage unit. I thought that was interesting. Again, I didn't watch a lot of trench play to comment there because there's no pads on. That'll change tomorrow, but he was part of the kick coverage, which is not normal for a defensive tackle to be covering kicks. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And then, as I suspected, these defensive ends, these guys that are, I think, competing for the fifth job, Javon Solomon, Kingsley Jonathan, Casey Toohill, they all had a lot of reps in covering kicks, in covering punts, blocking. Like, those guys, I think, are going to be involved. And I don't know that there's a role on this team for more than one of them, but whoever does make it is going to have an active role on special teams. And so I was correct about that suspicion, at least through my observations today. All right, folks, that's my notebook. That's everything that I observed and things that I'm thinking about coming out of this practice. I'm excited to be here throughout the week. So I'm going to be back at practice Monday morning, Tuesday morning. The Bills are off Wednesday. They practice Thursday morning. I'll be there. And I'll also be at the Blue-Red scrimmage at the stadium on Friday. So plenty of boots on the ground coverage this week. Don't miss anything. Also, don't forget Sunny Reds, 6 o'clock Wednesday night. That's Sunny Reds in Lackawanna. I'm going to get there at 6 o'clock. I'm going to tape a podcast with Pat Moran later on, like 8 o'clock. But if you want to stop by, say hello. I'd love to meet you at 6 o'clock Wednesday night at Sunny Reds. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. Plenty of coverage coming this week, so don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow after practice.